There is a man who is a diligent doctoral student during the day, but transforms into a demon at night to prey on others. Over the course of more than 2 years, he assaulted 206 men. This case shocked the UK and the world, making the perpetrator the most prolific sex offender in British history. So, what really happened back then? Let's travel back to 2017 and explore this case from the beginning. Manchester is located in the northwest region of England, a metropolitan borough in Greater Manchester. With a long history, it was one of the earliest industrialized cities globally and currently stands as the second most prosperous city in the UK after London. In the heart of Manchester lies Princess Street, surrounded by the famous Chinatown, numerous bars and clubs, and several universities. As night falls, many students come here to socialize, making the nightlife vibrant and lively. The story we are focusing on today happened here. At 6 a.m. on June 2, 2017, 18-year-old amateur rugby league player Jerry was suddenly awakened by severe pain on his body. As he regained consciousness, he found himself lying in bed with his pants pulled down below his knees and a man having sex with him. Jerry immediately got off the bed, looked around, and realized he was in an unfamiliar room with a bewildered stranger standing naked in front of him. In that moment, with both physical and emotional pain, Jerry contemplated for 2 seconds, understood that a proud man like himself had been violated by another man. Filled with anger, he wanted to seek revenge for the loss of his dignity. Using his skills as a rugby player, Jerry, being a tall, strong gym-goer, swiftly fought against the smaller, weaker man who had violated him. The man was defenseless and ended up battered, bruised, and lying motionless on the ground. Later on, Jerry also called the police. But the police arrived. They saw a small man lying on the ground, not moving, appearing injured, while Jerry seemed unharmed on the surface. In the eyes of the police, they obviously thought the injured person on the ground was the victim. Consequently, Jerry was arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm, regardless of the situation. The bruised petite man was taken to the nearby Manchester Royal Hospital for treatment. Despite Jerry's desperate explanations that he was actually the victim, the officers at the time only believed what they saw with their own eyes. You're perfectly fine while he was knocked out by you, yet you claim to be the victim. Us seeing it as an outsider, this was clearly a misunderstanding. However, in that moment, Jerry was taken to the police station for questioning as the suspect, while the petite man receiving treatment at the hospital exhibited strange behavior upon waking up. He did not cooperate with the police inquiries and refused to unlock his phone for inspection. Under the police's tough attitude, the phone was unlocked. However, he grabbed the phone from the police. Obviously, there were indecent secrets in the phone. Indeed, after the officers took back the phone, they found that it was filled with pornographic videos showing this man in front of them sexually assaulting others, who were all men in a state of unconsciousness. Upon seeing this, the police finally realized what had happened. It turned out that Jerry was really just an ordinary person, and the petite man covered in injuries was the real culprit. The man who violated Jerry is named Reynhard Sinaga, born in 1983 in Sumatra, Indonesia. Coming from a wealthy family, his father was a successful businessman that owned a private bank. Can you imagine how rich they are? Therefore, Sinaga has lived a luxurious life since childhood. Despite being born into wealth, he didn't rely solely on his family's fortune and was diligent in his studies. In 2006, Sinaga graduated successfully from the University of Indonesia with a bachelor's degree in architecture, then went to the UK for further studies. He arrived at the University of Manchester in August 2007 and quickly obtained a master's degree in urban planning. Not stopping there, in 2011, he also earned a master's degree in sociology. It is unclear whether Sinaga didn't want to start working or he just truly loved the academic life. In August 2012, he began pursuing a PhD at the University of Leeds, which took him 4 years. Unfortunately, his first submission wasn't even approved when he was caught by the police. He was still working on his doctoral thesis. During the whole period of studying, Sinaga lived in the UK with the support of his father. He appeared elegant with a prominent family background, polite and diligent in his studies. Could someone like him really be a criminal? After some investigation, it was shocking to discover that the heinous crimes committed by Sinaga was so absurd and malicious that they were rarely seen in the entire UK or even worldwide. The police searched the apartment where Sinaga lived, which was located near Princess Street with many lively bars and clubs. The apartment was also not far from the Manchester gay village, which was probably why he chose to live there. Sinaga was gay, which was a fact that he didn't hide. Inside the apartment, the police found a lot of alcohol, various hallucinogenic substances, filming equipment, and devices for storing videos. Additionally, from the videos found on his phone, the number of victims involved had exceeded 100, all of whom were males. What puzzled the police the most was that besides Jerry, no one else had reported the case during this long period. Could there be more to this than meets the eye? The police carefully examined the images of the victims in the videos, confirming a total of 206 men appearing in the footage. Only 136 of them could be identified, while the remaining 70 were unidentifiable. Subsequently, the police started searching for these victims for evidence collection. Due to the lengthy time span, the footage taken at Sinaga's house could confirm his criminal activities dating back to as early as 2015 or even earlier. As a result, many people who appeared in the videos had already left the area, making the investigation and evidence collection very challenging. Investigators began visiting and contacting numerous victims in England and around the world. This was a massive and time-consuming endeavor. Most victims were unaware of the violation until contacted by the police. Many of them woke up in Sinaga's apartment, thinking they had simply drunk too much and that Sinaga had kindly taken care of them. Some victims, due to family reasons, did not want to be involved and cooperate with the police. The police understood their stance. In the end, 48 victims chose to confront Sinaga in court. In the courtroom, Sinaga remained extremely calm, showing no remorse and often smiling. He refused to plead guilty to all charges and claimed that all the men he had sex with did so willingly, fooling around in bed after drinking for fun. He insisted that the so-called victims were just pretending to be asleep. Despite appearing motionless in the footage, they were clearly enjoying themselves. Sinaga's defense became increasingly absurd, even claiming that all 48 accusing individuals had proposed to him in his apartment. The judge naturally did not believe this far-fetched story, and the 48 victims knew that he was making everything up. To expose Sinaga's lies, the police had to release the videos filmed at his home. The sight of the victims watching themselves being violated was undeniably agonizing, and a sense of awkwardness filled the courtroom. Snoring could be heard from many victims in the video, clearly contradicting Sinaga's claims. Among the 48 individuals pretending to be asleep, the first to be violated was Tony. 2015, at the age of 22, he had too much to drink at the club. When he woke up, he was already at Sinaga's apartment. He felt very uncomfortable and his body was covered in vomit. He didn't think too much of it and made sure to thank Sinaga for taking him in. Sinaga would also boast about his achievements on social media. He wrote that, "Manchester is a magical city, a city of gay romance. Take a sip of my secret poison. It will make you fall in love." In January 2015, Sinaga assaulted a 19-year-old man. At that time, the man had an argument with his girlfriend and gave Sinaga a chance when he was alone. Afterwards, he bragged to his friends that he was a savior, rescuing him from his terrible girlfriend. On a weekend in September 2016, within 24 hours, Sinaga assaulted 2 men. One of the victims was 19-year-old Jack, who had been drinking heavily that day. After getting out of a taxi, he met Sinaga, and they went to the apartment together. The next morning, Jack woke up to find himself naked. Sinaga explained that he had undressed him as he was sick. Sinaga also made advances that Jack rejected. In the UK, in order to protect the privacy of the victims, the names of all victims were represented by alias, and 4 separate trials were carried out independently without interference. Media coverage was also prohibited. However, some individuals chose to waive their right to anonymity. Daniel was the first victim to do so. He mentioned that one day in 2015, he was celebrating his birthday with friends and had quite a few drinks. After the gathering ended, he planned to take a taxi home, but suddenly felt the urge to pee. He went to a small alley next to the pub and then blacked out. The next day, he woke up in Sinaga's apartment feeling groggy, not knowing what had happened. He thought he had just drunk too much and didn't report it. It was only in 2017, when the police contacted him and showed him the video of the assault, that he found out what had actually happened. Daniel's experience represents the majority of the victims. They all thought afterwards that they had just gotten drunk because they would normally get headaches the next day after drinking. Even though they felt the physical pain, it would be masked by the headache and it didn't feel too obvious. The police combined the testimonies of many victims with surveillance videos to basically reconstruct Sinaga's criminal process. He usually went out after midnight as his apartment was very close to the bar street, just a few minutes walk downstairs to get into his hunting ground. Sometimes he could even encounter his targets right outside the apartment building. Through surveillance video on the street, it was seen that once he went downstairs, within a minute, he had brought someone back home. He selected only men who were alone. If someone who had been drinking too much is lying in an alley or on the street, he would directly take them home. If someone had been drinking but was still standing, he would approach them, chatting them up, suggesting a change of location for more drinks or finding a place to sober up, with a very high success rate. Once someone followed him back to his apartment, there was no chance of leaving freely. He would offer them a drink that had been spiked beforehand. After consuming it, the person would lose consciousness. To ensure everything went smoothly, Sinaga would cautiously test if the other person was really unconscious before the assault. The filming device would then capture the whole process, and the next day Sinaga would inform the person that he had brought them back after they collapsed on the street due to excessive drinking the previous day. Typically, the victim would thank him and leave. Using this method, he continued for 2 years. In April 2017, a man reported to the police that he only remembered waking up in the room of an Asian man, feeling dizzy and leaving. 2 days later, he realized he had been violated and immediately reported it to the police. Unfortunately, he didn't recall the suspect's appearance or address, so the police couldn't find any leads. Until what happened to 18-year-old Jerry. Nobody knew whether it was because of his good physique or because he consumed fewer hallucinogenic drugs, but he woke up during the assault and exposed the crimes of Sinaga to the public. The trial of Sinaga ran from 2018 to 2020. Despite his refusal to plead guilty, he was convicted of 159 counts of sexual offenses and sentenced to 88 life imprisonments due to the overwhelming evidence. The judge expressed, "In my view, you are a very dangerous, cunning, and deceitful individual, so I hope you will never be released." Although the parole board has the discretion to grant parole, His earliest opportunity for release would be after serving 40 years in 2060. Even if Sinaga were to live until then, he would be a 77-year-old man. The Crown Prosecution Service considers him to be the most prolific sexual offender in the history of British law. In fact, globally, such a high number of crimes directed at males is unprecedented. With his sole effort, Sinaga left a negative impression of Indonesia for the world. Many Indonesians despise Sinaga and express their opinions on social media, stating that Sinaga is a disgrace to the country. Some even felt that the sentence was too lenient and he should have been sentenced to death, but this was clearly impossible. This is because the UK abolished the death penalty a long time ago. The victims clearly had more to say. Victim A: I hope Sinaga spends the rest of his life in prison, not only for what he did to me, but also for the harm he caused to many others, bringing them immense pain and suffering. Victim B: The day the police contacted me is one I will never forget because it completely changed my life. Victim C: I hope he slowly rot in prison, that he may feel the pain and torment I have felt. He destroyed my life. Throughout the entire trial, Sinaga's family only had his mother present at one hearing. She told the media that she did not know her son was gay, that they are all devout Christians and can't believe it's true. Sinaga's father later publicly admitted that his son deserved the sentence. I don't want to see him again or discuss this case anymore. Sinaga indeed grew up in a devout Christian family, and even in the UK, he often went to church. His friends have seen him go to church many times, and all of them say he's a very compassionate person, and it's hard to imagine him doing such a thing. It's worth mentioning that Sinaga's university mates in Indonesia said he's intelligent, cheerful, and optimistic. His sexual orientation is normal. So it seems that Sinaga became gay only after he moved to the UK. When he first arrived in the UK, he lived somewhere else before moving to the place not far from the gay village. Another possibility is that Sinaga was always gay, but Indonesians at the time were not accepting of it, so he didn't reveal it. In the UK, he found people's views on it to be more open, so he openly embraced his sexual orientation. After this case, statistics were compiled by the authorities in the UK, showing that the number of emergency calls from men reporting incidents had reached an all-time high. This alerted the local community's attention, as prior to this incident, the focus had primarily been on women's safety. It is commonly advised for women to not walk alone late at night, while the safety of men has often been overlooked. This story teaches us that it is crucial for both men and women to know how to protect themselves when they are out and about. Well, that wraps up today's story. If you enjoyed watching our videos, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos. See you next time.